All right. Going to let everyone. Oh, there he is.
There he is. Hello, Judge. I can't hear you yet.
Audio. Anybody got
There we
audio?
go.
Great. Sorry, on an interview that went a little teeny bit long, and so sorry to be a little late getting on. How are you doing?
Good. This is going to feel relaxing to you after all your stuff you've been doing.
Oh yeah, I tell you what, no joke. It's good to be with friends. I'm on a lot of these calls. People are just so disappointed that I'm still breathing. Teresa, that is a beautiful bookshelf. Or home, or is that your office up on?
He's asking you if you're at home.
Beautiful bookshelf.
Zach, are we ready?
Okay, everybody is in here.
Not,
so,
I think Teresa's frozen.
Am I frozen?
Oh
yeah.
no, you're not.
You're good to go.
No, can you hear? I know you and I are going to have a conversation. I was complimenting your bookshelf. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Well, Teresa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you. Great.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the town hall on county assistance for the coronavirus period. My name is Carol Donovan. I am your Dallas County Democratic Party chair. We have a great program here, and I'm going to introduce the moderator, Commissioner Theresa Daniel. I want you to know she's in her 8th year as your commissioner for
folks who are elected as Democrats. I'm sorry, as Republicans.
I'm trying to figure. She is in her 8th year. She has been a public servant for a long time. Prior to that, she worked for Congressman Martin Frost, and both as a congressional aide and also as his campaign manager. She worked for DISD in charge of the evaluation and accountability program. She has more degrees than most of us all together. I introduce you to Commissioner Theresa Daniel.
Well, good afternoon. Yes, I'm your Dallas County Commissioner for the eastern part of Dallas County. One correction, I worked on Martin Frost's staff, but I know that his campaign manager would not appreciate the fact that I took over his chair temporarily. But it was quite a learning experience through all of his long career. I did want to say welcome to the Dallas County Democratic Party's town hall. We do have some very knowledgeable people in our space today. We've got Pauline Medrano, the Dallas County Treasurer. We've got Judge Clay Jenkins, who is the county judge for Dallas County, and Sasha Marino, who is one of our JPs. And they all will bring their slice of what how Dallas County is responding and providing service during COVID-19. And then I will, as a county commissioner, be able to add a little bit on some of the efforts that I've been involved in also. Why don't we start off with Pauline Medrano? And I think I don't see her, but Pauline, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much, and welcome, everyone. Thank you, Carol and Judge Jenkins and Justice of Peace Moreno. Welcome to this segment. As we know, COVID-19 has turned our world upside down, but there are a lot of things that Dallas County is doing to try to help everyone in Dallas County. For one, I'm going to just start with our office. We have an unclaimed property tab in the Dallas County Treasurer's website. If you go to dallascounty.org, then once you get into the main page there, you click on departments. Once you click on departments, then you you scroll all the way down to the Treasurer's Department. You click on the Treasurer's Department, and then on the left-hand side, just scroll down, and it's named the unclaimed property. Once you click onto the unclaimed property, you will see that you'll automatically be linked up to the comptroller's office, the Texas Unclaimed Property. Now, they've returned over $3 billion already of unclaimed property, and I will tell you, I've gone in to look at some of my relatives and neighbors' names, and we have found some money. So right now, I know folks are in need of some money. I would suggest that you come onto Dallas County website, go into departments, go into the treasurer's website, go onto the unclaimed property tab, and go in there and go look for some money that perhaps you or your relatives may have there. So that's one. Two is something that just started on Monday the 15th, and of course the Commissioner Daniel, and the judge and the other commissioners just had this Dallas Emergency Small Business Assistance Program. They're in the pre-application process right now through the 28th of December. And this is open to small businesses operating in Dallas County, not within the city of Dallas, but every other city outside of the city that is made up of Dallas County is eligible to apply. It is possible that it's forgivable loans up to $15,000, and the funds may be used for working capital. So you can could definitely call. There is a number there you could call. It's 214-845-7673. I'll repeat it, 214-845-7673. Again, you could submit your pre-application. It is not a guarantee. It is by random. They're going to get all the applications, and then by random, they will see who will be submitting an application. I do want to say that 40% is going to be for small businesses that are under 50 employees, 40% for 51 to 100 employees, and then there's 20% for strategic areas in Dallas County. But I mean, there's who is eligible. Businesses must be physically located and operating in Dallas County, but not in the city of Dallas. Business must have no more than 100 employees as of February the 1st, and have an annual gross income of less than $1.5 million in 2019. So there's some stipulations, but I think it's something great that the Commissioner's Court have done. So that's one for small businesses. They also have assistance for mortgage and rent, and that's through the Catholic Charities and the Jewish Family Services as well. So you can go then. You can't receive money from everyone, but you can either go through the Jewish Family Services and or the Catholic Charities, but you could only receive either one up to 3 months of mortgage or rental assistance. So I think that's really nice. That people at least have an avenue or a place to go for assistance. I also want to talk a little bit about just Dallas County, just on a regular basis. In particular, the Health and Human Services. We have a new director, Dr. Philip Wong, and he comes to us by way of Austin, but Dallas is home for him. They have the welfare section of Dallas County, and so they can help also with rent, room and board, mortgage, utilities, transportation, and food. And you could call 214-819-1800 or 1810 for information on those services. They also have the comprehensive energy assistance program, and they can help folks with their utilities. That contact number is 214-819-1800. 214-819-1848. Again, the number is 214-819-1848. They also have, Dallas County also has a weatherization assistance program. So there's, as long as you're eligible, they'll come and do some weatherization for your home. That contact number is 214-819-1909. The number is 214-819-1904. They also have older adult service program. That's for meals. They have transportation and a little bit of socializing opportunities as long as you wear your mask. And residents have to be 60 years old and over. That telephone number is 214-819-1860. That's 214-819-1860. They also have the home loan counseling services. So if you need some, just some information or some counseling services on mortgage counseling or down payment assistance, Dallas County also has that. And that number is 214-819-6060. 214-819-6060. I appreciate the time. If anyone has any questions, I think we might have them. We might leave them to the end. But Carol or Commissioner, if you have any questions, more than happy to help.
Well, thank you so much, Pauline, for all your good information. And I know that we'll have all of those numbers available if people would like to access that. Now, let us move to Judge Jenkins. Do you have a few things that you would like to add to the story of what Dallas County is doing in response to COVID-19?
Sure. So, let me give you some first, always. There's a one-stop shop here in Dallas County for information about COVID, and it is Dallas County COVID. I strongly recommend you do there is go there and download the red color-coded chart, print that off, stick it on your refrigerator. Use it that is local health experts who are trained in the fields of epidemiology, because this is an epidemic, infectious disease, because it's an infectious disease, public health, as well as the leaders of the Dallas Fort Worth Hospital Association, the Dallas County CEO of Parkland, and other health leaders chosen by the medical, basically the hospitals, to lead on this issue. Each decision the governor makes on opening, and they put it on the colored chart with whether that's advisable for the general public or for you in particular. So for instance, you may be in a high-risk group, or you may be caring for or living with a person in a high-risk group. So things that people that are not in that group or not living with a person in that group are able to do may not be a good idea for you to do. A big surge in cases. For instance, today was our first day to be over 400 on these new test cases. Part of that can be due increased testing, but do you realize that in the last 2 weeks, remember we talked about early on that we're looking for 2-week declines to move to better colors and to get more of the economy open. That's what the CDC recommended and what the governor and President Trump ignored. But if you look at the last 2 weeks, what we've seen is an over 40% increase in COVID hospitalizations in Dallas County. If that trend continues for a few more weeks, we will be at our capacity for hospital beds. But more importantly, it's never been the goal to get as many people sick as we can before we run out of hospital bed. The goal, of course, is to keep us all safe and to get our economy moving again. That's why I'm so pleased that the governor has caved in on and flipped his opinion today at our request. Dallas County was the first county to request and was joined by the city of Dallas, Fort Worth, Plano, Grand Prairie, Frisco, McKinney yesterday, and now by all the other county judges this afternoon, to ask the governor to allow some enforcement of masking. Here's why that's important. This masking thing is kind of confusing. It makes your head spin if you're not following it closely. In March, they told us masking didn't work. In late March, they said they were going to do some studies about masking. In April, they told us masking works to protect other people, but not you. In late April, they told us masking might help you too. In May, they did more studies and said masking helps you more than we thought. And now with the studies that have come out this week, the doctors are now saying the single most important thing that you can do to protect yourself from COVID is masking and to protect others from COVID. When the governor did his flip on this, he said you can't fine people, you can't put people in jail, but you can pass reasonable rules on business to require them to come up with ways to ensure masking in their businesses. He also said, just because I'm talking to Democrats, people will appreciate this, he said, and you've always been able to do that, and it's good that Nelson Wolff, the judge who wrote it, has finally figured that out. Well, actually, the Dallas County Commissioner's Court did that last month. That they passed an order that said the governor's recommendations about masking and other things in his Open Texas document that he calls recommendations, we're going to require those. The governor responded by having his lawyer, Ken Paxton, write us a cease and desist letter demanding that we stop enforcing or checking in on businesses to see that they actually follow his recommendation on masking. Now he's saying not only will he allow it, but he's recommending that everyone do that. Of course, that'll be something the Commissioner's Court, has to look at. And this is kind of hot off the presses stuff. The governor just flipped around 1 o'clock at the request of the, Dallas Chamber, HEB Grocery Store, the Texas Retailers Association, the Dallas Citizens Council, and the Public Health Committee. I had a call with them shortly before this call, and where they're all asking, what can we do to make this happen? We need this to protect our workers. We want to do this. This is great. Let's hurry. And so our county attorney, our county attorney is actually John Crusoe, but the civil attorney for the county will be taking a look at this order and coming up with probably just the same as the order that they have in Bexar County for us to look at in the Commissioner's Court. And that will have very strong support from the business and health community. And what that order does is it says that businesses have, I think in Bexar County, ours may not be exactly the same, but it depends, Commissioner Daniel and the other 3 members of the court will have an equal vote on what it says. But what Bexar County says is businesses have 5 days to come up with a plan to how they're going to get people to do this. And HEB was already telling all of us about their plan because they're going to do it. They're going to just lead and do it by Monday, if not before. And they had a really good plan. And then the other retailers were like, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. But at any rate, so they'll not the county, but the businesses come up with their plan. And they submit their plan. And then the code enforcement people go by and, see if they're doing their plan. And, it doesn't take much to get people to do something like this. You don't have to go around finding people and shaming people. If HEB is saying you got to wear a mask to shop here, and every other store in Dallas County saying you got to wear a mask to shop here, and you can buy a mask for 99 cents if you don't bring one, people are going to wear a mask. And that's going to really, really help save lives because 80% of our COVID business cases, people who have employment and get COVID, are coming from those essential businesses. So that's kind of the big hopping thing today. And, you know, but that's it on COVID. On policing, I was very proud of the work of the Commissioner's Court. We had, you know, 3 important resolutions yesterday. Resolutions don't have a fiscal, you know, amount of money attached to it. They're not binding. But the court unanimously said that they are for any cite and release offense being treated as cite and release. So, you know, cite and release is an option if you are doing graffiti or you have a small amount of marijuana. It's an option to cite and release you, but not a requirement. And the court is asking all the law enforcement agencies to not arrest, but rather to use cite and release. And this is part of that criminal justice reform where we radically transform policing to radically improve the relationship between policing and the community and improve the lives of our Black residents who are, you know, having a very bad relationship with our police forces that has to change because, yeah, obviously it's just evil and wrong that every 10-year-old Black child is having a discussion with their parent that my daughter's not going to be having about how to survive a routine interaction with law enforcement. But they passed that one. And then Dr. Daniel had a resolution about reaffirming LGBTQ rights and recognizing Pride Month. And whereas you would not think that is controversial, for the first 8 years or 7 years that I was on the Commissioner's Court, the Republican member of the court would get up and leave the room whenever we would present that resolution because they didn't want to vote for it. So that passed unanimously with support from our Republican member as well. By the way, that cite and release is from our Republican member. And then Commissioner Price had one on racism. So I'm very hopeful that both at the Commissioner's Court level and at the city's level, we're really going to see money behind and real policy behind radically transforming the way we police, putting more money into mental health, putting more money into social service, really doing the things that that are science-based and policy-based to improve the lives of people who right now, you know, are just really have a terrible relationship with the police. And that's on the power structure and us to make moves to fix it by listening to them. So I'm very hopeful about that as well. With that, thanks for having me. Love the Democratic Party. Most important election of our lifetime. And thank you. I know you guys are busting your butts out there to get people registered, to make sure people vote. Can't thank you enough for what you're doing. And I'll say this about these other 3 elected officials before I'm quiet. I think people are getting a chance to see Democrats lead. For a lot of people, they don't remember Ann Richards. You know, if you're under, say, 55, you may not, and you aren't all that tuned into politics, you may not remember that. So they've never seen Democrats lead before. But in Sasha Marino, you've got a leader that has led the effort on with JPs to keep people in their homes. Pauline, you've got a leader that's led the efforts to make sure that her employees are safe, to make sure that we're getting maximum dollars in our investments. With Dr. Daniel, she's worked on a host of issues from IT to mental health to other issues. And so people are paying attention now. They're seeing folks lead. They're also seeing the incredibly weak leadership that we're getting right now from our flip-flopping governor and our who's now taking on the tack of blaming everybody else but himself for his own mistakes, and our divide and conquer president who's never met a group that he doesn't want to demonize. And so, you know, I'm just really thankful for the work that you're doing and the work that they're doing. Thank y'all for listening.
Thank you, Judge. Really appreciate the leadership you have shown in keeping people in Dallas first of all, safe, but then also working into finding that balance so that folks can go back to work also. Now let us move along to Ms. Sasha Moreno, the Honorable, who's a JP for Dallas County. And I've been very proud of the number of JPs who I've talked with who are very, very sensitive to what is the impact to people when they are furloughed or for a variety of reasons, their wages have been decreased and thus affecting their ability to pay their rent. Judge Moreno, do you want to fill us in a little bit on what's the status and recommendations for people?
Yes, thank you so much, first of all, to the Dallas Democratic Party for allowing me the opportunity to provide an update regarding evictions on behalf of my fellow JPs. And so for those of you who don't know, our courts were temporarily closed, but all courts were reopened as of this Monday on June 15, 2020 for in-person, for people to come for hearings in person or to file cases and such. And so for evictions, I'm also very proud that even though the Supreme Court order for evictions ended in approximately the middle of May, we, as all 10 justices of the peace, decided to extend that order to June 15th. And now as of that point in time, though, the moratorium on evictions has been lifted as of Monday. And so that would include for all post-COVID related eviction cases. And we understand, you know, people were losing jobs and what were they going to do? And we don't want to send people out, obviously, their homes, especially with cases rising. Now, we do not have an extension as of yet. And so we have to proceed as we normally would. And so many of the justice courts, we are barely beginning cases as of this week in person. Now, we understand that people have concerns about coming into the court. And so we are in this new normal. As many of you see, there's lots of us judges holding hearings over Zoom. You may see yourself on YouTube for a few hours because we do have to fulfill our requirements under the Open Records Act, but we are trying to be accommodating of people and their health, and obviously safety is our #1 priority. And so if we do have hearings that are being held in court, you may request at any time to either have a telephonic hearing or a hearing via Zoom, or again, if you provide documentation, and every court is different in what they require, so I would recommend that you reach out to each court, you know, providing documentation if you have been diagnosed with COVID-19 or you have other symptoms, to please let us know and we'll try to reset as soon as possible. In the meantime, again, we will have to proceed for now as dictated in terms of our cases. Now, the other thing too is we also have multiple laws that we have to follow, and I want to kind of clarify some of the confusion because most people are confused about which laws apply to them. And so a lot of people in the news a few weeks ago saw that the city of Dallas had provided some additional requirements and notices for evictions. Well, obviously the city of Dallas passed that, so that means this would only apply to city of Dallas homes and residents and tenants. And so that actually provided additional requirements of landlords before they can move forward with the eviction process. And so if you are a resident in the city of Dallas, you can't be kicked out of your home immediately. There are additional requirements that the landlord has to, if you're in default of rent, you have to send a notice saying that you have a possible eviction. You would have 21 days to respond. And if in those 21 days, you can provide some sort of documentation to the landlord that you're unable to pay rent due to COVID, then you would have 60 days to try to make some sort of arrangement with the landlord, whether it's a payment plan or any other arrangements that you can work out with your landlord so that you can remain in the home. And if after those 60 days that you have not met those requirements that you discussed with the landlord, then they could proceed with the eviction process. Now, unfortunately, not every city has passed a similar eviction ordinances, but I do hear that some cities are rapidly trying to figure out solutions that mirror the city of Dallas. And so obviously, if you hear that your city has passed a resolution or ordinance within the next week or two, I would recommend that you follow up and see if you would fall under that. Because there is a lapse in time between the orders, potentially we may have to begin the process if we don't receive an order from any other municipality or from the Texas Supreme Court or from the county that we need to stop. So, I recommend you stay on top of city council meetings, the news, just to hear the latest update, because for a while we were getting updates of different laws almost daily about what we needed to follow. And so the other thing too that I would recommend, if you believe that if you're a tenant and you believe that you're protected under the CARES Act, you have additional protections, and that is obviously a federal law. And so if you have, if you are part of a housing program that falls under VAWA, public housing, for instance, Section 8, housing choice vouchers, you would have actually a longer time to stay. You can't even be served a notice to vacate for an eviction until July 25th. And so if you believe that your landlord is going after you unlawfully and is trying to get you out now, and you feel like you're protected under the CARES Act, you do have protections. Because again, that moratorium does not end until July 25th. And July 25th is the date when they can barely begin the process. That does not say July 25th, you're out. They have to start the process. And so if you do think that you may qualify under the CARES Act, I again recommend you reach out to the court as soon as possible that you're part of Protected Act, or also if you have the ability to speak to an attorney to help represent you. There's also multiple outlets that are offering pre bono assistance. I know SMU Law School is offering free legal assistance for COVID related matters. I know that Dallas Evictions 2020 at gmail.com, if you contact them, they could also provide some pro bono legal assistance to assist you in this process. Because as you can see, it's very confusing if you live in the city of Dallas versus if you live, my courthouse is in Grand Prairie, those rules don't apply to you. But if you hear in the news about Dallas, it can be very confusing. And so I just recommend, if you have any questions, please reach out to an attorney. Unfortunately, we as the courts cannot give any legal advice. We can just kind of direct you to where to go. But there's many protections in place for tenants during this time, and we will try our best to ensure that you get that information. But again, it's really up to the tenant to do so. So we recommend you be proactive, even with all these different, the CARES Act, with the City of Dallas ordinance, you're still obligated to pay rent. So that has not changed. So please continue to make payments as much as you can, if possible, to your landlord, because once those protections cease, if you're still in default of any rent, we will proceed like normal. And so please talk to your landlords if possible to try to make some sort of arrangements and accommodations so you don't have to end up in court. The other thing that luckily I've seen since I've just started resetting eviction cases as of yesterday, if a case is filed eventually, but you're still able to work something out before the hearing, the landlord can dismiss the case. And so I will say the majority of my cases that I had set for a docket yesterday, no one showed up or they were dismissed by the landlord. And so that's good news to see that even though the cases were originally filed, people are being proactive to ensure that payments are being made so that we do not have to move forward with an eviction. So just because the case has been filed against you, that does not mean it's the end of the road. Please continue to talk to the landlord and potentially it'll be dismissed and you won't have to worry about it. In terms of court procedures, we all have the administrative law judge last week did approve our plan in terms of how we move forward as separate courthouses in terms of keeping everyone's safety in mind. Every courthouse is different because of the structure of each building is different. The number of offices within the buildings are different. Parking's different. So again, I would recommend if you're going to a courthouse to contact the court so you know what those rules and regulations are. We highly encourage people to wear masks, especially in the courtroom. We have plexiglass. We have staff using gloves. I mean, we're trying our best to make sure if anything that can be emailed beforehand versus you bringing it in paper. Again, we're obviously would love that. So there's not a lot of exchange of documentation and sharing of germs and things like that. So We are trying to keep safety in mind. Again, I just recommend you reach out to each courthouse to understand what those rules and regulations are so that you're prepared and that you also feel comfortable. And again, if you are part of a vulnerable population or you're sick, there's other avenues in coming to the courthouse that we're willing to provide, especially during this pandemic, such as over the phone hearings or Zoom hearings. So I believe that is about the extent of my update for evictions for now. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Well, thank you so much, Judge. There's a lot that goes into it, and I think you've at least tried to give a lay of the land description of things going on. I would like to follow up, if I may, and because I'm sitting in this chair, I think I can, to kind of give an overview to elaborate a little bit on how a few of the things that have been referenced fit together under the CARES Act funding that Dallas County has received. Dallas County received about $439 million, actually $440 million. And that is for the 25 cities and unincorporated area outside of the city of Dallas. So that kind of feeds into what Judge Moreno was talking about, how the different jurisdictions can have different instructions. One place to get a lot of that information has also been referenced, and that's dallascounty.org. And at the top of that is a bright red box that says COVID information. And in doing that, you can see, you scroll down, what's open, what buildings are open, what kind of services are open, and where you can get additional information. Also wanted to clarify just a little bit in the respect that Dallas County is focusing in on the small business assistance, which has been referenced by Pauline, in the housing assistance, which the judge has talked about. And the housing assistance is through Jewish Family Services and through Catholic Charities, but it's getting the CARES Act monies there. And then we're setting up child care assistance, which is another aspect. We're also getting $75 million, sharing it with each of the 25 cities so that they can assess needs in their own communities to help individual families. Would also like to talk about just a minute that people are concerned about testing. So part of the CARES Act funding is going to increasing testing, as well as quarantine housing for non-complex populations. If you need to be in quarantine, some people don't really have a place to do that. And so going to dallascounty.org and seeing where how you can link into those kinds of questions. Then we've got the quarantine housing for complex populations, as well as financial assistance to individuals left out of the stimulus check. And that will be coming up. One of the areas too that I particularly am working on is broadband access. It's become particularly apparent that you really have to have internet contact in order to get into a lot of these things, or into the programs, or to get the information you need so that you don't make wasted trips. So we've been working with a broad spectrum of people, starting with the ISDs, because they have been ahead of that particular project. We've also done some on the getting the protective coverings and sanitation going on throughout the county, bulk called PPE purchases and things like that. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, is the CARES Act funding and the role that we play. I would just like to take an additional 30 seconds to talk about elections are coming up and what are we doing to get ready for them. And so far in the just about this last year, we've invested about $6.5 million into new equipment. There's been a lot of training that's gone on. And so we will be in our 4th exercise using that new equipment. Hope so that we will not be in the same situation as Georgia was in earlier this week. but we're more than happy to answer additional questions on that. And then we do have a couple of questions that have come in, so I will go over them and we'll be listening to see if there are any others coming up. I was contacted earlier by Judith Kaplan, who had the question of it. It's a COVID related in the respect that she wanted to know if there's going to be the state fair this year. And I know that that's something that adds so much to our community, but it also has the ramifications of a huge gathering of people. And so what is the impact on, what's the healthcare impact of that? And I understand that earlier this week that yes, the state fair will be open, and it was announced by the committee that handles that. And the instructions will be coming up in order to make that a safer experience. There have been a couple of other questions that have come in. One question was from Lori, and she was wondering if you're going to visit a restaurant, what are some of the parameters on that right now? Do you have to maintain the 6 feet distance, the social distancing? And is there a responsibility on the restaurants to limit the number of people who come in? And yes, in fact, there is a limit on the number of people coming in. And so often there will be a sign at the front that says that they have pickup dining, they have dining within the restaurant, or they may have patio dining. That is partially up to the restaurants themselves and what they feel comfortable with. Judge Jenkins mentioned this guide that you also can find at dallascounty.org, and it goes into a lot of the social situations and what would be a recommendation of safely being able to attend events, or going out and eating, or going shopping or travel, attending events and entertainment. There's a lot of situations in here that do talk about ways that we can safely participate with them. Another question came up of, can anyone get tested? We got a notice from Parkland yesterday. They are one of the major healthcare engines in the Dallas area, in addition to our Health and Human Services. And the testing is if you have a temperature of 99.6 or higher and shortness of breath or cough, or you are age 65, or anyone with chronic health conditions such as diabetes, asthma, heart issues, or any first responders, DART drivers, healthcare workers, grocery store and essential retail store workers, or persons without symptoms who may have actively engaged in large group settings. And by this time, even though most of us are being very careful, we go to the grocery store, we've gone to public gatherings, maybe we've gone to church in the past 15 days, and you are able to go get testing. And there are a number of sites, and once again, those sites are listed, and the hours and what you're going to need to take with you. Go to dallascounty.org. That big red block on the top will have it on there. So you'll be able to get your additional information. Are there any other questions that have come in? I'm not seeing any. And I'm looking around to see if I've received any other questions that might be of interest. I've had a couple of questions saying, well, what's going on with the jail? All those people are there, and isn't that just a hotbed for COVID-19 to be spread? I keep up with the jail numbers because I'm very interested in keeping, first of all, Dallas County safe and the jail safe. And yes, in fact, we do have it set up, and did from the very beginnings of March, of being able to quarantine anybody who either tested positive or was in the area of somebody who had tested positive. I would also like to say that there have been no confirmed deaths as of the 15th. There have been no suspected deaths from the jail. There have been jailers who have tested positive, and there are, as of the 15th, there were 10 who were quarantined. So yes, we are keeping a very close watch on that and practicing the safe, all the safe practices that the CDC recommends.
Commissioner,
Yes.
this is Carol Donovan. Do you have any questions that have been sent to you via text?
Well, those were the two from Lori and Deborah, and then Judith Kaplan were ones, and then Zach, who is also in the background managing, you'll be able to show a screen of the sponsors, because it's not only all of us working together, precinct chairs, election judges, and just a lot of dedicated Democrats out there pulling together and seeing how we can make our area better.
Would you like me to read you some of the questions from the group chat?
Oh, please do, because I've just, Zach has sent me a couple and I've already asked those.
Okay.
Hey, and Carol, I'm just typing in answers to everybody on that while y'all are talking. So I think I've answered some of them already, if you want to look.
Oh, okay.
I see a question related to, can we reduce even further the number of voting locations due to lack of election workers and their fear of the risk of exposure? In fact, we are most definitely looking at super voting centers. We have an obligation to the state that we would not, when we opened up voting centers, we would not decrease it, but COVID-19 hadn't happened at that time either. And at this point, we've got a lot of locations that are too small, and to find the people that we need to work with them. So we're looking for, as what's been implied here, super sites so that we can be safe in going to vote. I think you probably already noticed, I think it was today, that one of the Democratic Party, the state Democratic Party cases regarding mail-in ballots is going up to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. So hopefully we'll get some guidance on that before we have to, before the general elections. Does testing adhere to HIPAA? You betcha. We have got to, we still follow the rules of HIPAA, of CGIS, of just the variety of protections, of personal protections that must be in place regardless of what we're doing. So yes, testing does adhere to HIPAA. Anything else? Judge Moreno, did you have anything else you wanted to, did we skip anything or miss anything?
I don't have anything additional unless anyone has any specific questions regarding evictions and resources. And
well, thank you very, very much for all you do. And thank you, Judge Jenkins. I know that as we speak, you're continuing to work. I kind of felt too that we've got our day jobs, believe it or not. And then on top of it, we're trying to make our community as safe as possible, while keeping in mind the impact that all of this is having on families and kids, their ability to pay rent, their ability to function as a family. Some people have talked about the mental health needs that have increased over this particular time period, and some of the criminal justice needs filters through other parts of our society. And Dallas County has been very active on those areas too, and being more sensitive to if there are other ways of dealing with the situation, of directing people to get help in other ways rather than taking them to jail. And that's why cite and release was so important yesterday, that was discussed at Commission. It's a complicated time period that we're living in. Sometimes I call it the twilight zone because it seems like in working at home or working in other spaces that there are challenges. But you know, one of the things that is also, I think, shown us how we can do a better job in a lot of areas. We are certainly trying to focus funding that is coming through the feds and through the to make life a little easier here. Keeping in mind that yes, there is an election coming up, and we want to make that as safe and productive as possible. That all being said, thank you so much. Carol Donovan, did you have any final words to say? That
Yes, I wanted to thank you and the participants on the panel for their help in letting us know what's out there. We want to thank our sponsors, which are listed on your screen right now. And also, we want to let you know that at 4 o'clock next Wednesday, we will be having a town hall involving 4 different constables to get their ideas on how we can improve the police brutality situation. Thank you so much to all of you. We'll see you next Wednesday.
thank you so much. Thanks to all who took time to be here.
Thanks all.